What's up, everyone? So I was just working on a Warren Buffett video that I think you guys will enjoy. It's definitely like a fun little concept that I came up with. But as I was working on that, this news came out that apparently the US and China are getting a lot closer to reaching a trade agreement. And because of that, I was swarmed with a ton of comments asking me for my opinion on everything that's going on. So in today's video, we'll actually just do a quick update on what's going on between the US and China, and I'll give you my quick thoughts on that. And then I'll post the Warren Buffett video a little later or probably on a different day. But anyway, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this quick update. Let's go ahead and dive right into this. So it's being reported that the US and China have agreed to what President Trump calls a very substantial Phase 1 deal that is expected to be written and signed over the next few weeks. And in the agreement, there will be stipulations on intellectual property theft, although some of that will be included and finalized in Phase 2 or Phase 3, but that could potentially be a big win given that it's arguably the biggest concern that America and many other countries have had with China, given that to access their markets, they would essentially force you to transfer your intellectual properties to them so that they now have all of your technology without having to do any significant research and development themselves. And that's obviously a huge problem in a global competitive market, but because China's market is so big with over 1.4 billion people, companies didn't really have a choice other than to hand it over if they want to access that large market. In any case, speaking of access to the Chinese markets, Phase 1 will also include access for financial service companies like credit card companies and banks without having to be jointly owned by the Chinese or have some kind of unfair dual partnership with Chinese companies. That's a big deal for companies like Visa and MasterCard, for example, who've been trying to enter the Chinese market for decades in a meaningful way. As a result, credit card stocks like Visa jumped over 1%, while banks like JP Morgan Chase saw similar little spikes. I actually thought the reaction was pretty muted overall, but we'll get into that in just a second. Another stipulation is that China will purchase between $40 to $50 billion of agricultural products, which Trump mentioned was a tremendous deal for farmers, given that the most China was spending was $16 billion on agricultural products, but that's now climbing to as much as $50 billion. And he also noted that at one point it was only around $2 to $3 billion, so he touted it as a major victory given the large increase in purchases. John Deere stock climbed almost 2% as a result. They also mentioned that they are implementing certain rules to prevent currency manipulation and that they will not raise tariffs from 25% to 30% on $250 billion worth of Chinese goods, which was planned to take place next week. They also mentioned that there is plenty of time to reach a deal before the December tariff hikes as well, so that may also be prevented depending on how things go moving forward. Unfortunately, there was no clarification on when the existing tariffs would be taken off, but I think that's safe to assume that it would happen when we get further down the road and make an actual agreement. Either way, when asked why this is happening in phases instead of just one big agreement, Trump said that it's because the entire deal will be so large that it makes more sense to do it in phases or packages and take it one step at a time, making more progress along the way. People who don't like Trump will likely take this as him just trying to make everything sound bigger than it really is, and this Phase 1 is just to draw attention from things like the impeachment talks. However, I don't like to give political opinions, but if I'm being honest, I think that we are trying to make some pretty big fundamental changes to the way that China treats IP theft and the way that they allow us to access their markets. So I think we're also at a point where both sides really need to save some face and save their economies especially. So I think they really need to just start cooperating and making some kind of progress. So if taking a step-by-step approach where we agree to some little things here and there and it kind of just helps us make our way down the road, then I think overall it's not a bad thing. Now, the whole Huawei situation is not included in Phase 1. I think that's going to be pushed to Phase 2 or 3, and there's still other things in Phase 1 that may not actually be finalized until Phase 2 or 3. So I can understand why a lot of news outlets and media outlets took a more kind of negative tone when reporting on this. and the markets had a little bit of a muted response. I mean, we did pop over 1% across the three major indices, but I think they were actually up a little bit more, and then they kind of came back down a little bit towards the end. And a lot of that is probably due to the fact that the trade war has just gone on for a bit too long at this point, and we've had a lot of ups and downs. Sometimes tariffs are being delayed, sometimes they're being increased, sometimes trade talks are going well, sometimes they're breaking down. But overall, I think that progress is progress, and I still see this as a net positive, although things could break down at any point, which we've seen happen in the past. So I think that's why, the markets had a little bit of a more muted response, and it makes some sense. Now, I'm sticking with my original prediction that I think a trade deal does get done eventually, probably sometime kind of early next year, because I think Trump really needs it by the election. Going into the next election with a trade war, or what could be even worse would be a recession, is going to be very bad for his chances in the election. At the same time, China really needs to improve their economy, and they need to get attention off of everything that's going on with Hong Kong. So I think both sides will give a little, take a little, and then go back to their home countries claiming a victory. Now, I'm also sticking to my prediction that I don't think we will have a recession in 2020. The reason I think that is because I think we get a trade deal. I think that the Fed is still being accommodative at this time. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, whether that's the right move, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that with them still kind of being accommodative, at least for now, and with the trade deal being done with China and with low unemployment and still pretty high consumer confidence, I think it's going to be very difficult to have a recession in 2020. Although, anything can happen. That's just my guess. I think 2021 or later starts to make more sense. But anyway, these are just my opinions. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section, and I'll try to respond to as many as I can. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick update. If you did, make sure you hit the like button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.